A single act of kindness, a red balloon given to a little girl, set off a chain of events that would come full circle in the most unexpected and heartwarming way. A young girl, no older than 7, stood in the middle of a crowded city park, her tattered dress fluttering slightly in the afternoon breeze. She wasn't playing like the other children. Instead, she stood frozen in place, her wide eyes locked on a colorful bunch of balloons swaying gently in the hands of a street vendor. Red, blue, yellow, green, they danced in the wind, vibrant and full of life. So close, yet so far. The little girl reached into her pocket, pulling out a few small coins. She counted them carefully in her tiny hands. 1, 2, 3, not enough. She sighed deeply, staring at the balloons with longing. People bustled past her, too busy in their own worlds to notice the small child standing there, wishing for something she couldn't have. Some were on their phones, others were rushing to work. A few held hands with their loved ones, lost in laughter and conversation. But no one stopped for the little girl. No one, except one old man. Sitting alone on a nearby bench, his wrinkled hands clasped together, he had been watching her for several minutes. He noticed the way her fingers clutched the coins. He saw the way her shoulders drooped when she realized she didn't have enough. And he saw something else too. A reflection of himself. Long ago, he had been that child, a boy with empty pockets, standing outside a bakery, staring at a loaf of bread he couldn't afford. No one had stopped for him that day. He wouldn't let history repeat itself. Slowly, the old man stood up, his legs aching from years of wear and tear. He shuffled toward the balloon vendor, reached into his worn-out coat pocket, and pulled out a few crumpled bills. "1 red balloon, please," he said, his voice soft but firm. The vendor nodded, handing him the biggest, brightest red balloon. With careful steps, the old man walked over to the little girl and gently tapped her shoulder. She turned around, startled. "For me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The old man smiled, his eyes kind. "Yes, every child deserves to smile." Her small hands trembled as she reached out and took the balloon. She held it as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. The old man's heart swelled as he watched her. He didn't say anything more. He simply turned and walked back to his bench, feeling lighter than he had in years. The little girl stood there for a moment, unsure if this was real. Then, as the wind lifted the balloon into the air, she smiled, big, wide, and full of wonder. She watched it float, her eyes bright with happiness. It wasn't just the balloon. It was the kindness that had been given to her when she least expected it. The kindness that said, "You matter." The kindness that made her believe in the world again. As she walked away, the balloon gently bobbing in the air behind her, she passed a woman sitting on a nearby bench. The woman was hunched over, her shoulders heavy with the weight of her worries, her face obscured by the phone in her hand. She was lost in the stress of her day, disconnected from the world around her. But the little girl didn't pass her by. She walked up to the woman and, without saying a word, held out the balloon. "For you," the girl said, her voice shy but determined. The woman looked up, confused. "What?" "This balloon," the girl repeated. "It made me happy. Maybe it will make you happy too." The woman stared at the balloon, unsure of what to do. She hadn't expected such a gesture, especially from a child. But then something inside her softened. She looked at the girl and took the balloon with a grateful smile. "Thank you," the woman said quietly. The girl smiled and nodded, then continued her walk, her laughter carried by the breeze. The woman sat there for a moment longer, staring at the red balloon. She could feel a small shift within her. The weight of the world felt a little lighter, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel a bit of peace. Days passed and the woman's life continued. But that small moment stayed with her. She found herself doing little things for others, offering kindness where she could. Her perspective shifted. It was as if the simple gift of the balloon had opened her eyes to the world's beauty. Meanwhile, the little girl, feeling the joy of her own kindness, continued to spread happiness wherever she went. She learned early on that kindness, no matter how small, had the power to heal hearts and connect people in the most unexpected ways. The chain of kindness had come full circle, spreading love, hope, and joy to everyone it touched. Moral: a single act of kindness can set off a chain of events, spreading love and hope in ways you may never fully see, but always feel. Like, subscribe, and comment to support us.